Welcome to the Chris Hanna Show. Hi everyone, it's Chris Hanna here, and it's another episode of the Chris Hanna Show. Now, I have been away for a couple of months, focused in a variety of different areas of my business and my life. And so I have not, honestly, dedicated a lot of time to a new episode of my podcast. Now, I've had a number of listeners start to ask what's going on, why haven't I produced more content? Well, the truth is that in the last couple of months, I've gone through a number of different changes. I moved to a new city, getting situated with a new house and doing renovations. That pulled me away into a lot of different things that I wasn't really able to focus and really have that dedicated space and time to really focus on the podcast itself. I also was promoted to CEO in the company that I work for. And so I haven't really talked about it much before, but I work for a company called Cashflow Tribe. We are a virtual company here in Canada that's helping Canadians escape the 9-to-5 grind, achieving financial freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment. And we currently do this through real estate. We educate people on real estate. We teach them about how they can be successful with various real estate strategies, holding events and live training for our membership group, in addition to having higher offerings where we focus on business development and really how we can accelerate someone's results in this space. So the last couple of months, I've been really focused on my new position. So I haven't dedicated a lot of time to the podcast. But as I said, I've had some feedback from people who have been asking what's going on, how come I haven't posted new content? And I thought, now's the time that I can get back into it as things start to really settle in now for me in terms of my property, the place that I'm living in, and in terms of the new role, kind of really starting to hit my gear and my swing here and feeling more comfortable. So with today's episode, I really want to focus on talking about what this journey to CEO has been, because I think that there's a lot of people who have gone through similar journeys to myself where they haven't felt like they were in a career or position that was going to be successful, or they were looking for a chance to improve themselves, and it wasn't until they found the right company that they ultimately found that success. And that's really truly what my journey has been all about. As I've said before, I started my career back in the rental car business days. And back then, when I started, this is going back in almost 15 years, I honestly didn't know much about business. I didn't know how to be a leader. I wasn't sure the best way to generate profit and produce a great customer experience. So made a lot of mistakes along the way. And eventually start to figure it out. You see what works in one spot, and then you try it in another, and before you know it, you start to find some patterns there. And throughout my time in the rental car business, I was able to be successful and eventually becoming branch manager of the year. And when I moved on from that company, I worked for another organization where I got the opportunity again to try new things and see what worked and what didn't work. And you learn a lot as you start to pilot different ideas and different ways of getting work done and ultimately leading teams. And within that business, was able to become the leader of a really powerful team that was named the best small contact center in 2020. During that time, though, as I was working for that company, I started to realize that I wanted to do something more. And the more that I wanted to do was actually in speaking and helping others improve themselves, and also businesses improve themselves. So I started realizing that for me to be a speaker, I need to start somewhere. And that somewhere for me was writing. I always loved to write. I always had this dream of writing a book, of eventually maybe writing a screenplay, because I love being that creative person who can just kind of come up with ideas and new ways of kind of tackling things. So I started writing, and I started writing my own blog posts. Those blog posts eventually started getting picked up by a couple associations, and I was asked to do some featured contributor work with them. That was pretty cool to see your writings published and other people to start to comment on them. And it wasn't a huge, following or anything that I've really developed associated with it, but getting some of that exposure was great because it led to other opportunities to host some webinars, to speak in person at events. My goal was always to speak, and so getting the opportunity to do that and share was awesome. But when I first started into it, I didn't know what I wanted to speak about. The only thing I really knew was how to lead a team, how to produce a great employee experience that produced results and ultimately be hopefully perceived as a really good leader. So that was the lane I went into, focusing on leadership and focusing on employee experience. And it helped. It helped me become a better leader in the organization that I previously worked with. But it also just helped me come up with new ways of looking at how businesses operate. And I started to realize the opportunity is to focus on how to help companies rethink and evolve their approach to managing not only their team, but their business. And that focus and that change sparked an idea of starting to be more of a virtual coach. So in time, I started coaching people about their own careers and how they could be more successful. What are the things that they could do to achieve more? What are the things that they could do to become a better leader or to get that job or that career that they were looking for? I think back to my days when I was in university at Brock University in St. Catharines, Ontario. I was a career advisor and I absolutely loved it. I had so much fulfillment with helping people with resume reviews and interview techniques or searching for that next opportunity. So when the opportunity came up to really be a virtual coach and starting to help people, and this is more freelance on my own doing it, I was so fulfilled with doing that. And I realized that there's the opportunity to continue to do more. And while I would bring those elements into the various businesses and teams that I led, it was so cool to start coaching. Now, naturally, when you're coaching and you're speaking and you're writing, you start to do other things too. And people start to ask you on behalf of companies if whether you can do some consulting. And by the time I started doing some of that on the side, it was something that just hooked me. And then I realized there's an opportunity here to help more companies with their operations, with their approach. And that ultimately led me to Cashflow Tribe and the company that I'm in now. And as the CEO, of being able to work in a business where they value your opinion and that they listen and they focus on the right things. We focus on community, results, and impact, and ultimately transparency. And those are the core 4 values of what really makes Cashflow Tribe what it is today. So over the last number of months as I've taken on this role of CEO, I've learned a ton of different lessons. And there's times where I definitely realize I've made mistakes, and there's times where I know I've made the right decision. But at the end of the day, becoming CEO is not an easy job. It's not a job that everyone ultimately is going to want to aspire to. Some people want to be at the top of the food chain, but it is a challenging role nonetheless. So one of the lessons I think that I learned early on, and I think I'm still learning this and learning the lesson, I guess, as we go, is that you can't do everything yourself. I have a bad habit of being really, really impatient. I love to move super fast. And there are times throughout my career, and still to this very day, where if things aren't moving fast enough, I will happily jump in and start doing some of that work. But at the end of the day, doing that does a couple of things. First, it actually takes away from someone's ability to learn a certain skill set or role. Even though I might know exactly what I'm doing and be able to do it pretty quick, me jumping in doesn't help. Furthermore, me jumping in and trying to tackle something that I shouldn't really be focused on takes me away from the more strategic opportunities that I need to really be dialed in on and where my attention ultimately needs to lie. The other big lesson I think that I've learned is that it's so important as a CEO to realize that what you do, and more importantly, what you don't do or say, is always watched as well. As a CEO and an executive in a company, you are obviously trying to make sure you're conveying a certain image, and you are trying to inspire the team and also share a vision of where the future of the organization can be. But there are times when you want to sit back and let somebody else maybe lead a conversation or take off in a certain direction, which I think is important as you empower your team members. But there was somebody who recently told me that I sat back quiet in a meeting, and I did it intentionally because, again, I wanted others to speak and not be the first person to kind of saying anything. And they were disappointed that I didn't speak up first and offer a comment or a suggestion, because they took a lot of validation from me speaking. And I didn't realize that I obviously had a huge influence on people, whether I actually said something or not. By me not saying something, they actually felt like they did something wrong and that they had done a bad job or failed in some way at the task that they were supposed to be focused on. So as a leader, it's so critical that we actually think about what we do and what we don't do and how that can be perceived. The other lesson we're going to talk about perception really is how perception can be really difficult to manage. There are things that we do sometimes with the best intention to help out, to make a difference, to inspire someone. But depending on someone's vantage point of where they're sitting, they might not see it that way. That can be incredibly tough as somebody who's trying to operate with the best intentions. But the truth is that, yeah, you're not going to be always perceived as doing things as you actually intended. Some people might think there's an ulterior motive. Some people might look into things more deeply than they should. I have experienced that personally and professionally, not only in the last number of months since becoming CEO, but really throughout my career. There are times where I felt like I've been unfairly perceived in a negative light when that wasn't the case. But at the end of the day, all you can focus on is trying to be the best person you possibly can be. When you're being the best person you possibly can be and doing what you think is right, you have to sometimes forget that there are people who might think that you have negative intent or the wrong way of wanting to try and go about and do something. You can only do what you can do, and you can only control what you can control. And that's important to remember. The other thing that's really become apparent to me as CEO is that change is all around us, and it is so important, but we ultimately need to embrace it. Because if you do not embrace change, you are going to become irrelevant. We have to continue to grow, evolve, learn, be flexible. If we don't do that as people, as leaders, as businesses, we're going to get left behind. There's far too many people who operate from a mindset of just being scared or worried and fearful about what happens if they take action. I know this because I have been that person before, where I was afraid to take action, to put myself out there for the longest time, because I didn't know how I would be perceived or whether there was going to be some negative effects as a result. And it wasn't until I decided to take action that you start to see that change can happen. Example of this would be when I first wanted to speak. I sat in events at conference rooms and workshops and seminars throughout my entire career. And I'd always sit there and I'd see people talking and presenting. And I'm like, I want to do that. But when the opportunity came up to try and put my name in the hat, I never pulled the trigger. I never submitted anything to do, like as a proposal. And it wasn't until late 2018 that I finally said, you know what, I just got to do it, because enough sitting around and saying that I want to do it, just take action. And my first proposal, I spent a ton of time on it. And I actually put together the whole PowerPoint deck of what I would present and everything. And at the time, I thought, you know, this is a lot of work. Hopefully this pays off. And they came back and they said, thank you. Really appreciate the effort. It's a lot more than we normally see in some of these proposals, but ultimately we're going to go with some other people. And I was like, oh, I failed. I didn't have the result that I was looking for. But someone else who saw that proposal reached out and gave me an opportunity to do some additional work, which led to basically the opportunities that I am now having in my life, where I'm getting a chance to share and lead and really grow alongside a fantastic group of people. But sometimes all you got to do is take the chance, put yourself out there, and you never know what's going to happen. But you got to be willing to change. You got to be willing to grow. And I think that leads to another great lesson when it comes to really this journey that I've been on. If you want to take it to the next level in terms of your career or do something personally, doesn't have to just be professionally, that really like levels up yourself, you have to be willing to level up. You have to be willing to put in the time, the effort to educate yourself, to go attend a workshop, a class, read a book, listen to a podcast, an audiobook, whatever it's going to be. there's so many ways that you can invest in yourself to become the best version of yourself. If we think about these last couple of years, this last year and a half or so since COVID-19 happened, you can look at it one of two ways. Either the last year and a half, 2 years was a problem for you. It was a challenge, I guess you could call it. Or you can look at it as been an opportunity. I hope for many people who are listening to this podcast and people out there that the last 2 years has been seen as an opportunity to maybe learn some new skills, figure out more what you like, maybe switch jobs. Maybe that's been forced upon you, or maybe that's something that you've been able to kind of choose to do on your own. But I hope that the last couple of years has been an opportunity. And if it hasn't been, if you've seen it as a challenge, nothing but roadblocks and things that have stopped you from being as successful as you want to be, you have an opportunity to change your mindset, to change your outlook, and as you move forward into 2022 and beyond, to realize you can achieve whatever you want if you put your mind to it. If you want to be better, you have to put in the work, you have to take action, but you ultimately need to make sure that you invest in yourself. However that is, it can be a lot of money, like attending a mastermind or a mentorship program, things that like my company offers as an example, or you can go and just pick up a book, or listen to an audio book or a podcast or watch a video or something to continue to get better. The goal should be always this: be better today than you were yesterday. If you just focus on that, the 1% improvements, just getting better and better every single day and every single time you get the opportunity to do so, you will look back and not be able to recognize yourself. You'll be shocked at the transformation that you will go through. I know I am. I look back throughout my career, when I first graduated from university to where I am now today, it's been a remarkable ride. There's been ups, there's certainly been downs, but every single thing that's ever happened, I appreciate so much. I value it so much because it's given me the experience, the knowledge, the know-how to get to this point. But what's going to get me to where I will continue to want to go is not everything that I just done. It's going to take another level of investment in myself and the team around me to really be successful. So my final lesson that I think I want to share here on the journey to becoming a CEO is that there are a lot of people who are part of the journey, whether you realize it or not. There are people who are kind of come in and out of your life. There are people who are there supportive maybe the whole time, and maybe who are not supportive. But every single person that you've interacted with ultimately helps contribute to who you are, whether it's a positive or whether it's a negative. At the end of the day, every single person plays a role in your life. Think of it like a movie. In a movie, there are supporting cast members and then there are background characters, but every single person actually does play a role. If you're the star of your show, that's great, but there's also supporting cast that's all around you that helps elevate you and make you better. Thank them, appreciate them, show them the love. That's critical, that's important. And those background characters who maybe you don't think made an impact, they probably made an impact in some way as well. But you don't know and you don't recognize until you look back on the journey, when you connect the dots and see really, truly what it's all about. Well, as we move forward here with the Chris Hanna Show, I'm going to continue to give updates on things that are going on in my world, some of my thoughts and feelings, some of the experiences that I've kind of gone through over the last couple of months. Like I said, it's been a wild ride, lots of activity, lots of things happening, but it's been amazing, really, just to be given the opportunity to take on CEO of Cashflow Tribe. I've still got the podcast. I still have people reaching out wanting to connect with me to do speaking engagements. And ultimately, I'm just here to help. I'm here to help people achieve more and be the best versions of themselves they possibly can be.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Chris Hanna Show. As always, the latest episodes are available to listen and subscribe to on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow The Chris Hanna Show on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter for more resources and solutions, including blog posts, toolkits, ebooks, speaking sessions, and more. Visit chrishanna.ca today. We look forward to connecting again with you soon for another episode of The Chris Hanna Show.